Good morning, everybody. It's your host here, Michael Rathburn, aka Rath, at Fantasy Rath on Twitter. Welcome to the DFS Minute today for Thursday, May 21st, 2015. And we got a split slate today. We got some early games, we got some late games. So no curve show today with Benny and Josh, but I'll give you some brief, quick hits. And then we'll also be available on the forums and in the chat room leading up to when lineups are going to lock, probably around 12 noon today. Be aware of some weather in the Seattle-Baltimore game. It looks like 50-60% chance of rain, so there's a chance that that game does get eliminated from the slate if it looks like it's going to get rained out. So right now it doesn't look good. It's going to be a little bit of a tough early slate today, I think, because you've got Kershaw and Bumgarner going against each other. So unless you take both sides of that game, which you certainly can do, but obviously you can't take any hitters in that game. And then if you get a washout, now all of a sudden you're left with the Colorado game, which we know we can definitely target, and then games like Arizona, Miami, and it may not be the best day to play the early game. So if that Baltimore-Seattle game does get rained out, I'm probably just going to scrap it and not play. If it does go, it looks like it's going to go, I'm probably just going to play some tournaments and some qualifiers because it might be a good opportunity to get some overlay and softer competition. So, but definitely no 50-50s and heads ups. I'll stay away. Too much overlap, not enough edge. Quick shout out to two guys that I just saw the results last night that hit on the qualifiers on FanDuel, Playboy qualifier. The $5 one, which is a really tough one to hit. Stevie TPFL. Stevie is definitely a longtime DFS player and really cool because he was a very active player on Daily Joust. So I've known him for quite some time, been able to meet him. He's also a Red Sox fan, so that also helps. But super good guy and does have a lot of knowledge of the industry and is always approachable whenever you want to ask him something. And I've seen him grow as a player, so it's been pretty cool. So he's going to the Playboy Mansion to play for a big nut. And then also Kay Cannon, who's a big-time player in the industry, took down one of the seats for the Boston Live final over on DraftKings. So the ironic thing with that is he did win with the Cardinals stack, which if you didn't have Cardinals last night, you probably didn't win. But I believe he's a Nationals fan. I think he's a Nationals fan, or I'm not exactly sure, but he actually had Bryce Harper in his lineup, who had a 0. We know he got ejected. Ejection was complete garbage and definitely hurt a lot of DFS players last night. So cool that he won with the Cardinals stack and actually had Bryce in his lineup and got a 0 and still won. So definitely good there. As far as the early slate goes, we got three big guys. We got Price, we got Kershaw, we got Bumgarner. Kershaw and Bumgarner going against each other. I mean, look, if you want to roll Price and Kershaw out there, your hitting lineup might be pretty weak, but you can bank the pitching points. It's tough. I don't think you can really do that. I think that your hitting is just going to suffer so greatly. I mean, look, Price can probably get you 25. Kershaw can get you 25. Is it one of those days where these guys can pop a 40? I don't think so. I don't see it here yet. I mean, yeah, Price can do it against Houston. Houston strikes out a ton, but they are right-handed heavy, and so we'll see. So as far as value goes, it doesn't seem like there's a hell of a lot of value in terms of the early slate. The only guy that I really think may have some value is Archie Bradley going against the Marlins, and the Marlins do struggle against right-handed pitching. I did mention Chase Anderson yesterday as a guy that I did like. So Bradley would be a guy, because he's so cheap, if he can get you to that 3X number, I think he's around like in the 5 to 6K range. If he can get you to 15 to 18, I think that's good. And then you pair him with a Price or a Kershaw and hope that you get a 30 or a 35 out of one of those guys, and then you can hit on some of the bats. It's almost unavoidable today. You're going to have exposure in Colorado, Philadelphia, so as well as a lot of other people. So just the way it's going, you're going to have it. I think the cheap bats on the Phillies, the right-handed bats, guys like Darren Ruff, Freddie Galvis is still pretty affordable, and then Franco is a little bit juiced up. So, I think he can fit him in, but I think that guys like Ruff and Galvis and Francoeur all are probably going to have some pretty good value today going against Jorge De La Rosa in Coors. And De La Rosa has been one of the worst pitchers in baseball, and he definitely struggles against right-handed bats. So Phillies right-handed bats, get your value there today. Arizona left-handed bats, I think, are going to have some value today. Guys like Peralta and Ciarte hitting at top of that lineup in the top four. Latos has been struggling lately, and you got to pick on somebody. So if the Baltimore-Seattle game is taken out of play, that really limits the amount of players that you can pick from. So those are just some early thoughts that I have. Again, Benny and Josh should be in the chat room leading up to about 12 noon. So definitely have some recommendations for you there as far as where to go on the hitting side, on the pitching side. And also, if you want to start a thread in the forum, if you want to post your lineup, if you want to post your thoughts, definitely go ahead and feel free to do that. With it being a short slate, I wanted to go ahead. We did a little bit of a teaching lesson yesterday. Thursdays are probably a good day for teaching lessons for me because the short slates, we don't get into a huge amount of analysis. And I know we've had a lot of people asking about Fangraphs. We've mentioned Fangraphs. We talked about it. So I'm actually going to do a live on-air kind of data pull from Fangraphs, and hopefully it works out. And we're going to look at starting pitching and kind of some of the basics that you can go for. So we're over here on Fangraphs, and the first thing we're going to do is go to leaders. And then I'm going to go to 2015 under pitching leaders. And then I'm going to go to team stats. I'm sorry. I'm not going to go to team stats. I'm going to go to player stats. Sorry about that. And the split box is where you want to go. So we're going to pull versus lefties. That's going to bring up what the pitchers do against lefties. Now you see here, standard, advanced, and batted ball. I typically would go to advanced. It's already going to have some of the stats that I want. And then I'm going to go down to the bottom, and I'm going to filter out the stats that I don't want. Typically what I'm looking at is I want K rate, walk rate, and then the differential between Ks and walks. I'm going to throw in innings pitched. And you can bump that up to the top. And you scroll down here and you can pick from the different stats that they have. So I usually go ground ball rate, fly ball rate, weighted on base, sometimes I do hard hit ball, but lately I've been leaving it off. And we create a custom table. So now we have some basis of some pitching research. And then I'm going to go over here to batted ball just to see what's over here. See here, these are different statistics that they have. But so we're back here, and what we're going to do now is we're going to pull the data. So we're going to go to export data. And this is going to bring it in Excel. And then what I do to make sure that I remember, I go insert versus left-handed batters. And then I do copy down, go back to Fangraphs, and then I go righties. All my stats are there. Now I'm going to go export data. I'm going to do the same thing here and do versus. Now what I want to do is I want to copy this, bring it over to my lefties. Do a paste. Now I can do a sort. So I want to highlight the whole chart and go over to filter and add my filters. Let's clean it up a little bit. We'll do a center. And we get rid of the player ID. We don't worry about that. So now I've got 2015 pitching stats by splits for the individual pitchers. Now the sample sizes for a lot of these guys aren't huge. And you notice a lot of this stuff is relievers. So what I'll do is I'll do a sort by the starting pitcher. And then what you can do is highlight the starting pitchers for the given day. So what I typically do is I'll grab a list of the starting pitchers. And get the list. This is usually the easiest place to get it. Just make sure that it's accurate. Okay, then what you can do is copy this list. I don't really pay much attention to the information that's being given. I just get the list. We try to stay with our own research. We don't want to be influenced by anything else. So we'll do a copy paste. And then see this little drop down box here, because it's copying and pasting the graphic. So you want the text. So you go match destination formatting. Okay. Then I clean up this data. What you're looking for is you want the names of the pitcher here. And bring this over. All right. Then what I do is I highlight these, whatever color you want, something that stands out. Okay, so now I know my starting pitchers for the day are highlighted. What I'll do, come over here and I'll do a sort. And I'll just zip through usually it works. Okay, we have the spaces in between, so can't have that. So let's try this one more time. There we go. Okay. And what I'll do is try to do a quick cut. And just get my group of starting pitchers for the day. So I want my sample data set of guys for the day. Hopefully you guys bear with me here. It's not like the cooking show where I already have it done and it was cooking in the oven before. But I also have a lot of people who have said, I don't know how to use Excel. I don't know how to get from where you're saying that you are to the next point. So I think it's good that I show you the process of how to quickly do this. And I'm sure there's a faster way, but this is typically only, it takes me a couple minutes. So what I'm going to do is we're going to, so now we have the bulk of the starting pitchers for the day. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to do this the fast way. I'm just going to highlight instead of doing the cut and paste. We'll do this. This is another way that you can do it. Just highlight the, okay, you see here we have a name issue. So we know Carnes is the pitcher. So his name, I think he's like the one guy that you got to look for. Okay, so we got Wendy Rodriguez. Yeah, this is a faster way. Now, the one issue with this is like a guy that's never pitched this year is not going to show up. So what I do with that is I'll typically just pull his statistics individually for the previous year. I think one of the, like if a guy like Matt Harvey or somebody like that, just what I'll do is I'll go back in and look at the statistics for that particular player, and I'll just input them into here. So I'll go look for like Jaime Garcia's K's, K to walk, things like that, what his splits are. See here, this Garcia. All right. Hopefully I'm not boring you guys too much. So if I go filter by color orange, that should give me pitchers for the day. Looks like that's most of the guys. Again, this isn't perfect. I'm really just trying to show you guys the process. So what I do then is let's do some sorting. Okay, so let's just look at innings pitched real quick. So we know Bumgarner and Kershaw and Wright and Price, these guys all have pretty good sample sizes this year against right-handed bats. And then guys against lefties. So let's do this. Let's look at K rates first. And it looks like we got about around 46. So what I'll typically do is probably go like top 12. You see down here it has a count. So let's do this. We know these guys are good. So their K rates are elite. Let's go lowest walks, go 12. K to walk rate, let's go 12. Typically trying to get about 25%. Since 46, 12, give it a take. So I want high ground ball rates. 50% or higher is pretty much elite, which is good. I want low fly ball rates. And I want low weighted on base. So there we go. All right. So we've got kind of a graph. We've got a little bit of a chart now that we can use. I throw in some graph lines usually. Let's go ahead and get rid of this. Okay. Then what I do is do the opposite. Is let's do bottom 12. I'll put them in red. Highest walks, I'm going to put in red. K to walk. Lowest ground ball rate. You want pitchers that get the ball up in the air, so highest fly ball rate. And then highest weighted on base. All right. So then just go back and sort by the alphabetical name of the pitcher. Okay. Again, not huge sample sizes here, but with a guy like Archie Bradley, it tells you really quick this guy has control issues. Okay. We see the high walk rates and the bad K to walk rates. However, he's got elite ground ball rate, and his weighted on base allowed is pretty good as well. So this is a guy who you can expect that is going to maybe go 5 or 6 innings and not give up too much damage, but he's not going to get you a ton of strikeouts, and he's going to allow base runners. So it's somebody that I can only use in tournament only. That would be the profile for him. Look at Chris Tillman, almost all red. These are very, very bad numbers. So he's bad against righties and lefties from a weighted on base percentage. He's not striking out lefties. He's a right-handed pitcher. So I'm definitely going to want to look at Seattle left-handed bats today as an opportunity. So guys like Seth Smith, Cano are definitely 2 players, and Kyle Seager would jump on my rankings. We go to Clay Buchholz. We do see a lot of greens, which is good. He's got elite numbers against left-handed batters, which is interesting because he's a right-handed pitcher so far. And he's got a pretty good – now he's been really good against lefties so far. And that weighted on base is below 300, so even that's good. So Clay Buchholz on the surface has some elite K numbers. Now, the weighted on base against righties is elevated. So that's something that I would want to look at. Clayton Kershaw, greens across the board, elite K rates, low walk rates. Elite. The weighted on base is a little bit higher because he has gotten knocked around in some games. But, again, it's Clayton Kershaw. Danny Salazar, we see the high K rates. Now, it looks like he does struggle against lefties, okay? And the weighted on base is low. However, low ground ball rate, high fly ball rate. So he's susceptible to home runs potentially against lefties, which makes sense because he's a right-handed pitcher. David Price. Now, here's the interesting thing about David Price. Nothing here is really screaming elite. Weighted on bases are average. He's got a couple of reds. I don't, what this would tell me is I would probably look at David Price a lot closer, but David Price may not be a slam dunk today. Now, we also would look at team batting. We know that the Astros do strike out quite a bit, but David Price's numbers are a lot lower than what I would have expected. J.A. Happ, we see some greens in here against lefties, left-handed pitcher. Jacob deGrom is a guy that I know some people are going to be on today, but if you look, The only thing that he's really elite is against righties with the weighted on base. He's not a high strikeout guy. And we go down the list. And you see John Danks is a guy that you can pick on, a lot of reds. One of the things you can do, you can come back up here and you want to do view and freeze panes and freeze top row. That way there you have your header. So let's come down here. And Ray De La Rosa, even though they're not in red, he's still definitely susceptible. Julio Teheran is interesting. Versus lefties, you see a lot of reds. Look at that weighted on base for Julio Teheran against left-handers, 492. So definitely look at the left-handed bats that are going against Teheran today. It's something you can pick on. Kyle Hendricks allowing 372 against lefties. Bumgarner, a lot of greens. He's elite. See, he struggles a little bit against righties. The ground ball rate, look at the difference in ground ball rate. Obviously, 3.2 innings. So that's like a completely sample size differential. But look at Bumgarner. He's just not seeing lefties. He's only seeing right-handeds. And then you go back up to Kershaw. A little bit more, seeing a little bit more lefties. But teams are just not putting lefties in the lineup against Bumgarner. We may not have the edge that you would normally have. You go down here and a guy like Matt Shoemaker who struggled this year, look at the huge numbers against righties, and which is interesting because he's a right-handed, but Matt Shoemaker has struggled this year, so he's a guy you can probably pick on. Despaigne has absolutely gotten blown up. They look at it against right-handed batters. So definitely this is some good data. Typically what I'll do is I'll play around with the data, and I'll just look and see who's got some reds and who's kind of an outlier. Do a couple red filters. And this kind of really shows me who the guys I can pick on today. Like who are the number one guys I can pick on? Well, I can pick on Tillman, left-handed bats going against Tillman, Williams, Latos, and even Wandy Rodriguez, who's a lefty. But I probably would shy away from that a little bit because you have low fly ball rate and high ground ball rate. So, and we talked about earlier about taking the left-handed bats against Latos on the D-backs. So what I would do here is I would probably just ignore Wandy because it's such a small sample size. It's not even relevant. So the four guys that I'm going to look to pick on are probably going to be against these pitchers and this handedness. So there's some other things you can do too. You can go back. You can still do weighted on base is almost always going to be a red for me. Then I kind of look here and I'll see, okay, Shoemaker's got some greens, so I'm going to stay away from that. I still would pick on guys that have whites in the Ks, but anybody with a green, I'm probably going to stay away from. So these are some guys. It looks like Tillman pops up twice, so you definitely want to look at picking on Tillman if the game goes. Lefties against DeGrom, lefties against Jerome Williams, righties against John Danks, lefties against Teheran, lefties against Hendricks, and so forth. So when I'm looking at hitters I'm going to take today, these are the pitchers I'm going to be picking on for the most part. All right, guys, that's a teaching session for today. Hopefully you get a lot out of it. And we will see you back here later on today. All right, guys, Rath here signing off. And as we say here at DFS Curve, at Roto Curve, DFS Minute, stay classy, DFS, as always.